From Mamma Mia, welcome to The Spill, your daily pop culture fix. I'm Laura Brodnick.
And I'm Ksenia Lukic.
And coming up on the show today, Scarlett Johansson has revisited one of her biggest controversies and has brought that back into the headline. She's not backing down on it, so we're going to get into that and what the fallout has been for her. And Ed Sheeran has some new music out, and he's a notoriously private star, so it's really interesting that he's given us a little bit of insight into his marriage and his private life in quite a dramatic way. So we actually have a special guest coming on to help us decipher all that through a musical lens. But first, some interesting news this morning.
Some musical news, which is great for both of us. Whitney Leavitt, who was a semi-finalist on Dancing with the Stars and a star on Secret Lives of Mormon Wives, is heading to Broadway in the role of Roxie Hart in Chicago.
This is quite the redemption arc for her, I think, was really the feeling this morning when this news broke. It was something like people thought it was coming. There'd been whispers, but it's kind of like when everyone thought Leah Michele was going into the role of Funny Girl. You're like, that would be great for the narrative arc that we're all talking about, but it's not going to happen. And then it did. So Whitney Leavitt, not someone I was super across, I've got to say, until Dancing with the Stars, the US version recently became this huge thing. I knew who she was from the show. So she was part of the MomTok group. I feel like you need a thesis in like TikTok history to sort of be across them.
Yeah, so I'm weirdly across this. For some reason, it was on my FYP all of last year. So Whitney Leavitt was a part of this Mormon MomTok group in Utah in the States.
And they all got famous together, right, by doing the dances and building a community and having this, and they all had huge following numbers.
Yeah, so the reason that Whitney got so much flack was one of the dances she did, she was doing a TikTok trend while her newborn son was on like life support in
I remember
the
that.
hospital.
Yeah.
And she was like doing a full TikTok dance being like, I'm really worried about him and he's not. And people were so floored by the juxtaposition of like someone doing a TikTok dance and something quite serious like your kids like being sick.
Yeah.
So that was kind of where a lot of people found out about her and she copped it hard for that.
Yes.
Then there was the whole swingers scandal.
And that's how the show
MomTok
started, right? Because wasn't that a thing? That was a thing on TikTok. And when Hulu announced they were making a reality show, The Secret Lives of Mormon Wives, which is about this group, that was kind of the anchor drama for the first season.
Yeah. So it's this kind of really interesting pocket of culture in Salt Lake City of these Mormon moms. Like they all line up for these. Have you seen that like soda place that they have?
Oh,
in
the dirty
States?
sodas, yeah.
So Mormons aren't allowed to drink alcohol or have coffee or anything. So the thing that they kind of, the workaround is they drink soda, like liters of it. And there's this big chain restaurant called Swig. And in Utah, the lines to get a swig in the morning are longer than any of the other lines. They have like one or two Starbucks there. There's never a line at the Starbucks, but there's always a massive line at Swig. They're obsessed with their sodas. Anyway, so she was cast on Dancing with the Stars this year. And part of the reason she was getting this villain edit is on the Secret Lives of Mormon Wives was because she left the season and then came back partway through.
Oh, and that was the whole thing of like, I'm going to start my own MomTok, and like Taylor Frankie Paul, who's a leader and stuff, were like, good luck.
So the reason she came back, and she's admitted this, was because she wanted to be cast on Dancing with the Stars to further her career, which quite frankly, I kind of respect because at least she's being honest about it. So that's kind of a little bit of the backstory with Whitney.
Yeah, so when she came onto Dancing with the Stars, she had was always seen as the villain. People didn't like her. People found her annoying. And I think she had like a bit of a fan base from her own followers, but she was very much introduced to Dancing with the Stars as this kind of villain. And I think a lot of people expected her to be voted off quite quickly or for people to really turn against her. Unfortunately, that was more of something that happened to Hilaria Baldwin. Whitney still had her haters, but as they went along each week in the dances, and she was partnered with Mark Ballas, who has been on the show for decades but has sort of taken time off over the years. So it was a big deal that he was coming back dancing with Whitney. And then every episode of Dancing with the Stars has a different theme, and each one people just started to love her more and more. One, because she was a great dancer, but that was the controversy as well.
So she actually studied dance. She studied modern dance at BYU, which is Brigham Young University in Utah. And she studied dance. So people thought it was kind of unfair because she wasn't really a non-professional.
Yeah.
But she's an amazing dancer.
Yeah. I kind of understand when she was saying, like, she's like, I did, more contemporary dance. She's like, and that's like, waving your arms around and like knowing how to position your body in a lyrical way. And she's like, dancing with a partner and doing ballroom is so wildly different, which I kind of get. The other thing is Dancing with the Stars is not a dancing show. Like, if it was, bless his sweetheart. If it was, Robert Irwin wouldn't have won.
No.
Because there were and that's the same every season. Like every season there's people who are great dancers and people who are just really loved because it's a reality show.
But he wasn't bad.
He wasn't
Earl,
bad, but he just wasn't the best dancer.
Yeah, so Alex Earl obviously was runner-up. She was also very surprisingly good. She was excellent. But Whitney, so she got kicked off and everybody basically said she's going to go into Chicago. And lo and behold, we found out yesterday that she is going to be in Chicago as Roxie Hart. Now, Chicago is really well known for its stunt casting. They have had so many different celebrities, particularly in the role of Roxie Hart. There's been like Erica Jane, Pamela Anderson, Brandy did it one year. It's really, really common for this particular role to be stunt cast. Chicago is like the longest running American musical of all time. It's been on stage for over 29 years. I think it's 29 years this year. And yeah, there's a reason why Roxie is this stunt role, because it's a little bit less technical than all the other roles. Like vocally.
Yeah, I know that's always a thing of like Roxie's the kind of the showy one that you can push someone into, and Velma's meant to be the one with the real vocal power, which I guess is true. But and also there's this whole history of reality stars who are either having redemption or having a moment. Like Ariana Madix did it after the whole Scandival thing, and you can see that Whitney was like really gunning for it behind the scenes, and it's something that she talked about on Call Her Daddy, because this was like, we kind of felt it here in Australia when she was voted off, just because I think people were watching the show, that it seemed like this huge disappointment, and it seemed like people thought Whitney was going to win Dancing with the Stars because she'd had this redemption arc of being this incredible dancer, and people who thought they hated her from the show when they were watching her, because most of Dancing with the Stars is not just the performance, it's all the little packages behind the scenes with people's like family and friends, or like in the rehearsal room with them and where they process all their trauma and stuff. And so a lot of people all of a sudden changed their minds about her, and so when it looked like she was going to win, that was quite a big deal. And when she was voted out, it felt very like, she framed it when she went on Call Her Daddy that she felt like there had been like almost like a campaign of hate against her, like similar to what Ilaria Baldwin had said, that people had turned against her and voted her out. But she said she was trying to get a Broadway role. That was her dream. She's trying to book movie roles. I think she has booked a part in a movie. So it's interesting to see someone make the jump from like a hated reality star who everyone kind of wrote off to now being seen as like I know Chicago's stunt casting, and
it's still a big deal. I'm not taking that away from her.
Well, the thing is, they only
do
that stunt casting if they think that person has a big enough draw that people will turn up and support them. And that, because that's the whole thing with when actresses talk about getting that Roxie Hart role in this particular Broadway setup, is that it's whoever's name is above in the lights is like, that's the big draw card. And so the only reason they've cast her is they've seen this swell of support, and they're like, people will buy tickets to see Whitney Leavitt after her whole MomTok Mormon Lives drama.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, we know that the famous song Roxie Hart, the name on everybody's lips, I'm going to see my name up in lights. It plays in really, really well to that. I think she's very good. I think she's very talented. Bizarre backstory and dancing. But you know what is interesting? I think part of the reason as well that Dancing with the Stars has hit us more here than in previous years is that we're seeing it on TikTok now. It's such a perfect show for like that TikTok algorithm, Yeah. And then you see all those behind the scenes things. Like Mark Ballas's Hamilton, like he did all these Hamilton like copies on TikTok, and I was obsessed with them. Anyway, she'll be doing a 6-week run if you want to go see her. So from February 2nd, 2026 at the Ambassador Theatre in New York City.
So Scarlett Johansson has given a new interview to The Telegraph because she has her directorial debut coming out soon. So she's hot on the press trail for that. And what's interesting at this interview with The Telegraph is that they asked her about one of her biggest scandals. And it's something that she, I guess, could have shied away from, or could have, kind of just given a very throwaway comment and really diffuse the situation. But she chose to really double down. And so I'm sure people are seeing the headlines around today, and just to give you a little backstory about what that's all about. So So she was asked about an interview that she did in 2019 with the Hollywood Reporter when she was asked about working with Woody Allen, who she's worked with many times on many different movies. And they asked her if she stood by her work, so this is back in 2019, and why she chose to work with him. And she said, "I love Woody, I believe him, and I would work with him anytime." She then went on to say in the same interview, "I see Woody whenever I can and I have a lot of conversations with him about it. I've been very direct with him and he's very direct with me. He maintains his innocence and I believe him." So when she's talking about innocence there, she's talking about the case where Woody Allen, if anyone wasn't across, hugely influential director and actor, but mostly a filmmaker, and many, many decades ago was in a relationship with actress Mia Farrow. And there were allegations that came out during when their relationship was happening that he had sexually assaulted Dylan Farrow, who is Mia Farrow's adopted daughter. This went through a huge court case. There was many different interviews. Mia Farrow and her family and her team have always stayed really strong to this story. Dylan Farrow herself has given many interviews, written about it a lot, really claiming all the things that she alleges that Woody Allen did to her. Woody Allen at the same time has always denied any of these things happened. He and Mia also broke up when Mia Farrow discovered naked photos of one of her other adopted daughters, Sunyi, in Woody Allen's possession, and he was decades older than her, and they are still in a relationship to this day. So essentially he married his stepdaughter. Yeah,
and part of the reason this was sort of reignited was around the Me Too movement back in 2017. So Ronan Farrow, which is Mia Farrow's son, is also a journalist. And he was one of the journalists who broke the Me Too stories and has been a very big advocate for the Me Too movement. And also a big voice against his, father, I guess.
Yeah.
Against Woody Allen. So in 2019, we're kind of 2 years after Me Too, we've got the Time's Up. Do you remember when all the celebrities were going to the Oscars and Golden Globes and stuff with Time's Up badges, basically encouraging people to stand up against abuse in Hollywood. Scarlett Johansson had called out James Franco for some of the allegations that were made against him. Ronan Farrow called out Scarlett Johansson for being a hypocrite. He wrote, "Because if we've learned anything from the past 2 years, it's that you definitely should believe male predators who maintain their innocence without question. Scarlett has a long way to go in understanding the issues she claims to champion." So he's publicly called her out. She stayed pretty strong on this, again, doubling down in this most recent interview, which is why people are a little bit confused by it, because it's something that a lot of celebrities in Hollywood, whether they've worked with him or not, are very, very vocal about.
Yes. So, and I think an important caveat around the whole Woody Allen story and the accusations that have come from Dylan Farrow and Mia Farrow and their wider family is that when a lot of people see these storylines around Woody Allen or these headlines, they say, "Oh, but he was found innocent," and it's not true. He wasn't actually found innocent. There just wasn't enough evidence for the court case to proceed, which with stories like this is often the case. It's so hard to get something like this to court because you have to have so much evidence, and obviously a lot of these allegations that come with sexual assault and with these sorts of stories, it is often witness testimony.
Yeah.
And it's even harder to get a conviction. That's this whole thing when they talk about people lying. It's the stats show us that it's not so much lying, it's all that people are found innocent. It's more so that it's such a hard thing to get through a court case. So I think it's an important caveat that he didn't go through a court case and was found innocent.
And we also need to remember this is back in 1992 that these allegations were made, and it was a Child Protective Services inquiry initially. So there's a couple of issues around that and complexities around that. So that's kind of the crux of it.
And so that was became a big part of this interview with Scarlett Johansson in The Telegraph, because she has directed her first movie, Eleanor the Great. June Squibb is the lead of it. It's something that Scarlett's really been championing behind the scenes for many years about wanting to make this movie and wanting to move more into being a director and champion certain stories. And that's why she's really on the press tour for it. And so in this interview, she was asked about working with Woody Allen. So she worked with him on Match Point, which came out in 2005, Scoop, which came came out in 2006, and then Vicky Cristina Barcelona in 2009. These movies were all critically acclaimed, but Vicky Cristina Barcelona in particular, Penelope Cruz won an Oscar. It was nominated for so many things. It was really seen as like this turning point of really cementing Scarlett Johansson as a dramatic actress. And so she was asked about how she had handled the online anger towards her about siding with Woody Allen and if there had been any consequences. So in this article, Scarlett says, I guess it's hard to know. You never know what the domino effect is. But my mum always encouraged me to be myself and to see what's important, to have integrity and to stand up what you believe in. And then she went on to say, at the same time, I think it's also important to know when it's not your turn. I don't mean that you should silence yourself. I mean, sometimes it's just not your time. And that's something I've understood as I've matured.
I do think it's interesting that she says that last part because she's doing the exact opposite of that.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think there's a few layers to what she said there. One is that Scarlett Johansson has always had quite a lot of controversy around her, but she is quite an untouchable movie star in many ways, that she is consistently the highest paid actress in Hollywood for many years. A lot of that is to do obviously with being in Marvel, but she also, like, any of her controversies over the years haven't stopped her from like starting her skincare business or directing movies. And she is someone in Hollywood that, apart from, you know, Ronan Farrow and like probably James Franco, who's been very much cancelled, she is someone who, like a lot of other celebs, rally around in ways that haven't happened for other celebrities who have had some of these controversies. So I think that that's kind of interesting that she kind of is talking from a place of safety, knowing that no matter what she says, she's going to maintain that ability to make money and be beloved and get dual Oscar nominations.
Yeah, and the article also covers a number of those other controversies. There's quite a lot. It's quite a meaty article. I mean, they talk about the Disney, you know, suing Disney for the Black Widow release. You know, she is not free from controversy.
Yeah, I think she came out of the Disney thing quite well, though. Probably not in Disney's eyes, but again, she's such a big name that they can't touch her. I think a lot of people were just like, yeah, get that money kind of thing. A lot of the other controversies are to do with casting and diversity. So when she was cast in Ghost in a Shell, there was a lot of anger about casting a white woman in what should have been a Japanese role. Yeah. And then instead of kind of acknowledging that, which she did a little bit. She did a lot of interviews about it. That's the thing, like if you ask her, and I kind of respect that a little bit, if you ask her, she'll just answer and give her thoughts. Again, it's coming from a place of safety, but she was like, I would never take a role away from anyone else. I would never play anything that I wasn't supposed to play. But she's like, I can't believe you people aren't celebrating a woman being in this iconic role, instead making it about race. And then she said something that was quite unfortunate. She's like, if I want to play a tree, I'll play a tree. And everyone's like, oh, that's not the way to go.
Let's not conflate the two. That's not quite the same
And then there was
thing.
that controversy when she was cast. This is coming after the reaction to Ghost in a Shell, where she was cast in the role of a transgender man in the movie Rub and Tug. And this was a huge issue because a lot of people were like, a straight white woman in particular playing that role is taking that role away from another actor. And especially when transgender actors in Hollywood usually don't get to not even play characters that are for them, but get to play characters in many different ways across movies and TV shows. And she released a statement at the time because this was a huge uproar, and it was one of those things that just, it picked up across Twitter, it picked up across Facebook and Instagram and all of these things. And instead of kind of, I guess, having a conversation about it, Scarlett Johansson doubled down, and she said, she put out a statement that said, for anyone who's upset about this, tell them they can be directed to Jeffrey Tambor, Jared Leto and Felicity Huffman's reps for comment. Obviously, all people, all straight actors who have played transgender characters in the past, and some of them like Felicity Huffman and Jeffrey Tambor, Jared Leto, actually all of them, I guess her point was they were all critically acclaimed, they won awards, they got paid a lot of money for playing these transgender characters. And then her point was, and now I'm doing it and I'm getting ripped apart. But the sentiment was that times had just changed. She did ultimate pull out of that movie though.
Well, if we're talking about the last 20 years of Hollywood, it's changed significantly in terms of not casting, you know, straight people in gay roles to give those people an opportunity to be, you know, the stars, which is why Pose was such a huge hit, because it hired all trans actors in the roles and it was, you know, really critically acclaimed. But yeah, I think she's just trying to sort of back out of that one. But I just feel like she has gotten away with saying certain things. I understand why she's trying to stick up for him because she respects him. She likes his work. She is friends with him. But I do think it's important to look at like the actual facts of the matter. And she says, oh, but I believe him. Well, do you not believe the other people?
Yeah, it's interesting that Woody Allen and who supports him and who doesn't has become like the biggest line in the sand for people in Hollywood. And for a while there, it's like the whole thing of like Woody Allen makes one movie a year and everyone wanted to be in it because if you're like a Cate Blanchett or something, you definitely win an Oscar for it. And it had this built-in audience. So like that was the whole thing is like Woody Allen makes one movie a year, everyone wants to be in it, everyone will go see it, it will win Oscars. And it was this pattern. And then as time went on and people started to like delve more into Dylan Farrow's accusations and the Me Too movement happened and Time's Up, and that's when Hollywood started to fall a little bit out of favor with Woody Allen. And now, you know, even he has said that he struggles to get distribution for his movies. And there have been a lot of really big celebrities who have worked with him in the past who have come out and said they deeply regret it. So like Michael Caine has, Greta Gerwig has, Colin Firth has,
Timothy Chalamet.
Yeah, Timothy Chalamet and Rebecca Hall both donated the fees from the movie they worked on because they said they felt bad about taking money from it.
Blake Lively did actually work with him, and when she was asked about him, she was very, very evasive. She didn't actually answer. She's like, oh, I don't know much about it. I'm just going to leave it. And Cate Blanchett actually did the same thing too. There's just kind of the celebrities that will dance around it, definitely not defending him, but then also not supporting him.
Yeah, it's interesting. I've struggled with that over the years because I'm someone who like has called out people like in like my writing, people like Blake Lively who want to be in the big movie and want to wear the pretty dresses at Cannes, but then when it comes to being asked about Woody Allen, have gotten quite like upset with journalists and said like it's nothing to do with me. And like sometimes I've called them out, but then I've also backtracked and been like, oh, why am I attacking this young woman for what this man has done? But it's a complicated situation. And then you have people like Kristen Stewart who was in Cafe Society with Blake Lively, and that was the kind of one of the last big Woody Allen movies when everyone was like, yeah, we're all in on this. So I understand why they did it in a way. And I usually agree with Kristen Stewart on most of what she says, but I sort of had to sit with what she said about working with Woody Allen because she said that she was wrestling with it when she signed on for the movie, which I find interesting because that means I'm like, so you knew about everything. Like you were in the depths of it. And then she said that she talked with Jesse Eisenberg about it, and she came to the idea that she's like, a lot of what people have said is about me is not true, and if I thought someone I was working with believed everything, that would be really upsetting for me, because she's like, I know a lot of lies are printed about me, and so I can't not work with someone just because things have been printed about them. And I was a bit like, oh, I don't know about that's not quite the
it's not illegal though, the things that they're lying about.
Yeah, it's not a rumor.
Yeah, there's a big difference between a rumor and sexual assault allegations and you know, CSAM. Like it's very, very different.
I think one of the best responses, especially like whole kind of giving space for someone to change their mind as they get older and they work more, is Kate Winslet, because she did a Woody Allen movie. And there was quite a bit of backlash at the time, and she was like, no, like I had a wonderful experience working with him. It was so great. It was so professional. I've never felt so creatively challenged. I'm not getting into this. And then years later, she had a complete turnaround, and she said, what the fuck was I doing working with Woody Allen and Roman Polanski? The Roman Polanski of it all is actually wild. I was like, yeah, girl, what were you doing? She said, it's unbelievable to me now how these men were held in such high regard, so widely in the film industry, and for as long as they were. It's fucking disgraceful. And then she said, I have to take responsibility for the fact that I work with them both. I can't turn back the clock. I'm grappling with those regrets. But what do we do if we can't just be fucking truthful about it all? And the whole thing is like, I don't dislike Scarlett Johansson for this. I also don't think it's not my place to dislike her over this. But I do think one part of me thinks that like she really believes that he's innocent, and she really believes in Woody Allen. And so I respect her a little bit for being one of the few people in Hollywood to actually say what she thinks. But on the other hand, like she said herself that she's made a career out of being controversial, which I think if you said the name Scarlett Johansson, no one would think she's controversial.
She's very under the radar,
because
controversial.
She's this beautiful blonde actress who just kind of, does say a lot of wrong things, but like at the end of the day, she's very protected from it all. So when she talks about
Pretty
her
blonde
career,
white lady.
yeah, when she talks about building her career on controversy, I was like, I don't think that's true, because if your career was built on controversy, you wouldn't have all these huge opportunities that you have, and you wouldn't have all these get out of jail free passes, and you wouldn't be able to say whatever you want in an interview from a place of safety, knowing that people will still buy your skincare, people will still people are very invested in your marriage to your comedian husband, people are very invested in your return to the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And I just think it's it's a not exactly a clear-cut situation that she's talking about.
So Ed Sheeran has released an additional 13 songs for his deluxe album, Play. So to talk about this and all of those new songs, we have the wonderful Brie Player here. She's the executive producer of Mamma Mia's interview podcast, No Filter. Now, Brie, you are very, very familiar with Mr. Ed Sheeran. So we wanted to bring you on here so that you could tell us a little bit about this new album, Play, and all these revelations on his relationship with Cherry Seaborn.
Yeah, his wife. Yes, absolutely. Ed has done the deluxe version of Play, so the album that he released back in September. He's done a re-release, Deluxe, which is very popular with musicians these days, and on it are 14 new tracks. And interestingly, the famously private Ed Sheeran has hinted to some troubles within his marriage to Cherry.
Yeah. So this is something that has surprised me the most, is because, we know artists write about their love lives all the time. They use it as inspiration. But Ed has been so private about Cherry, and especially Cherry and their kids. Actually, Laura's really good at celebrity kids' names.
I don't know those children's names.
You don't know their names.
He never talks about them. I know every other celeb child's name, but I think that goes to show just how private Ed Sheeran is. We don't know a huge amount about his family. We know that they have 2 kids together, right?
2 girls.
We know they've been do you know their names?
Yeah, Lyra and Jupiter.
Oh, I actually did know it was Lyra, because didn't they named her from that famous book series?
So
yes.
The Golden Compass?
Yes.
And
okay.
it's Lyra Antarctica Seaborn Sheeran.
That's a great name.
Yes.
But I know he and Cherry, they have done some kind of not promo stuff together, but they have talked about their relationship and how in love they are over the years. My biggest memory of him is that he said that he kind of almost set a test for her when they started dating, when he would take her to parties and kind of just purposely leave her alone in the room when he was becoming very, very famous, to see if she could go and look after herself and kind of stand on her own, so that he knew that she could stand by his side through the fame, which I always felt a bit.
Yeah, it's brutal, right?
Yeah,
I don't know how
I was
cope
don't
with
test
that.
me, but she passed.
But she obviously passed.
Yeah.
So the pair have been married now since 2019. And yeah, they are famously private. She is so low key. You don't see her at places. I mean, look, he's quite low key as well. He famously doesn't have a phone.
Yeah.
So
That's so
he's hard
cool.
to reach. He definitely grapples with fame, and I think he's been very open about that, and kind of the way that he guards that. To me, he's a musician who wants to be a musician. He doesn't want to be a celebrity, right? But he just happens to write massive, massive hits and do these massive tours.
Yeah, so one of the song's problems is the song that kind of really sparked people. So one of the lyrics are, flowers in our garden are dying. When did the water run dry? Who can tell? But you want the truth, we're not fine. And I feel like that's very, very honest.
Yeah, it's so honest. I mean, it's for Ed, we always hear him writing these incredible love songs, right? I mean, so many people have had Ed Sheeran romantic love songs at their wedding. He's very good at expressing his emotion, but we normally hear it from the other side of it. So to hear this is really interesting, and to hear him say, to compare it to flowers that are dying. But I mean, you're married, right? You know that a marriage takes work.
Yeah, but that's why I think I quite like it, because it's not just these. A lot of people have really latched on to the troubles that they're having, but there are a number of other songs in it that talk about how much he still loves her and how much he wants to put the work in.
Absolutely.
So I don't think it's a rift in the relationship and it's going to end.
No.
It's just a very honest analysis of what it's actually like to be in a relationship when you've got 2 small children.
Absolutely. And I think what people forget as well is that artists write these songs and then they release them a year later, right? So what's he's singing about right now in these new tracks aren't necessarily reflective of what's happening in their relationship now. It's reflective of what was happening at the time that he wrote it, or, leading into the time that he wrote it. Now, I chatted with Ed Sheeran back in July ahead of when he was doing promo for announcing his Australian tour. So he's coming here next year in Feb, and he'll be here all month touring around Australia. Now, he was happy, talking about his family, not delving into the nitty gritty. But first thing he did was bring up his daughters. He talked about Cherry, talked about her warmly. He talked about how she's the grounding person in his life, and definitely still is and has always been. But when an artist is on the road for months and months and months at a time, and sometimes their tours will go for a year, year and a half, 2 years, it puts a strain.
And let's not forget that Cherry was diagnosed with brain cancer when she was pregnant with their second daughter. And we saw a little bit of that in that documentary that he did. So, we saw a little bit of a glimpse into it. So, he's got 2 kids, a wife, he travels nonstop. His wife is, she's better now. She's okay. But it's been a very stressful few years. There was a quote I found, because it's easy to pick apart lyrics. There was a quote I found earlier on in the year. In a Q&A session at Spotify HQ, he said, "Cherry knows I write about everything, not just the good stuff. Songs like Perfect exist, but so do the ones about real conflict. That's part of any relationship, and I think it's important to be honest about it."
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's what we're seeing here. What I do find really interesting with the songs that he's added in the Deluxe is that they're the ones that delve into these marriage issues. It's interesting that they weren't on the original album. And
Why do you think he did that?
Look, I think it's very much on purpose. I don't think Ed cares about column inches and headlines. I don't think that this is, trying to get those songs out there. I don't think he actually cares about that. I think he's at a stage in his career where he's writing the songs he wants to do. He's exploring different things musically. We've got some Eastern influences on this album, which is him trying different things.
Azizam.
Yeah, exactly. And Sapphire. And he wants to kind of explore different areas as an artist and not really care about whether he's getting number ones and things like that now. He doesn't have anything left to prove. So I think he knew that by holding back these songs rather than releasing them straight away meant that the music that he was proud of and the music that he wanted to put out there got to exist on its own before the headlines and the news came out about, is there marriage issues there?
I have one more question for you.
Yeah.
So Ed is very famous for doing, all of his album titles are part of this maths equation. We've got equals, we've got play, we've got divide. What's he going to do once he runs out? Pi?
I don't know.
Pi.
He could do pi. Maths is not my strong suit. So, look.
It's the wrong room to be asking that. But you know what I mean? I love the theme. Adele did the 21, she did 2219, all of that. But I feel like he's really got a great thing here.
He does. Interestingly, this tour is called the Loop Tour.
Ooh. Maybe it's like an infinity
thing. Infinity. So it's just,
Anyway, so Ed Sheeran playing in Australia next year.
Starting off in Perth, going around. He's a good boy. He hits everyone. Aww. He makes sure that everyone gets to see him, and he always plays a stadium. And he'll be here all through Feb and into the beginning of March. So, look, it'll be interesting to see if he opens up a little bit when talking on stage and whether he even sings these tracks because they are on the Deluxe. So he may not.